Welcome back to my walk. Good morning. We are in Judges, one of the books of the prophets. This is mostly about the kings and their adventures. Let's pray. Holy Spirit, we welcome you here. We know you are always with us. You're always leading us, always guiding us, directing our days, directing our steps, directing us all the way around. You're directing us. We thank you for opening up our spiritual eyes and ears and our minds and our hearts to your word, our daily bread. We thank you for loving us and convicting us. We know condemnation doesn't come from you because condemnation comes from the enemy. You don't shame us, you don't guilt us, but the enemy does. But you give us a burning desire for you. Holy Spirit, forgive us of all of our sins, past, present, future, known, unknown, intentional, unintentional, and transgressions. In the holy and mighty, mighty name of King Jesus. Amen. Okay, we are in Judges chapter 7. The Lord shrinks Gideon's army. Now, this is a little fun. This is interesting how this happens. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all of the people who were with him, rose early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the army of the Midian was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midian into your hands, lest Israel take credit for themselves instead of me, saying, my own hand has saved me. Now therefore go proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart early from Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people turned, and 10,000 remained. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I shall try them for you there, and it will be of whom I say to you, this will go with you, and the same will go with you. And of whoever I say to you, this will not go with you, the same will not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, every one who laps the water with his tongue like a dog laps, you will set him by himself. Likewise, every one who bows down upon his knees to drink, the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down on their knees to drink the water. And the Lord said to Gideon, I shall save you by the 300 men who lapped and delivered the Midianites into your hands. Let all of the other people go, each man to his place. So the people took provisions and their shofars in their hand, and he sent all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, and to retained those 300 men in the army of Midian, and beneath him in the valley, was beneath him in the valley. And it happened the same night that the Lord said to him, arise, go down to the Midian camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. But if you fear to go down, go with Purah your servant down to the camp, and you will hear what they are saying, and afterward your hand will be strengthened to go down to the camp. Then he went down with Purah his servant to the outside of the armed men that were there in the camp. And Midian and Amalek and all of the children of the east lay along in the valley like grasshoppers for a multitude, and their camels were without number, like the sands of the seashore for a multitude. And when Gideon had come, behold, there was a man who told a dream to his buddy, and said, Behold, I dreamed a dream, and there was a cake of barley bread tumbled in the camp of Midian, and came to a tent and struck it, so that it fell and turned over, so that the tent laid flat. And his buddy answered and said, This is nothing else except the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, a man of Israel. For God has delivered Midian and the whole army into his hand. And it was so. When Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, that he worshipped, he bowed down, then returned to the camp of Israel, and he divided the 300 men into three companies. And he put shofars in the men's hands with empty pitchers and torches within pitchers. And he said to them, Watch me, and do likewise. And behold, when I come out, or when I come to the outside of the camp, it will be so. As I do, so will you do. When I blow with the shofar, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the shofar on every side of the whole camp, and say, For the Lord and for Gideon, 300 armed with shofars and torches. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch. Okay, so these watches that they're talking about is time frame. So you'll hear um, like the ninth hour, 6th hour, middle watch, mid watch, things like that. These are time frames, and this one, the middle watch, is from midnight to 3 a.m. So in God's creation, in God's world, there's 3 hour windows, and you'll also hear the word prayer watches, and that's the same thing. So this would be one of the prayer watches from midnight to 3 a.m. Okay. And they had but newly set the watch, and they blew the shofars and broke the pitchers that were in their hands. And the three companies blew the shofars and broke the pitchers, and held the torches in their left hands, and the shofars in their right hand to blow. Then they cried, and the sword for the Lord and for Gideon. And they stood, each man in his place, around the camp, and the whole army ran and cried and fled. And the 300 blew the shofars, and the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout the whole Midian army. And the army fled to Beit Shisha in Zariah, and to the border of Avel Meholah to Tabat. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali and out of Asher and out of Manasseh, and pursued Midian. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mountain of Ephraim, saying, Come down against Midian, and take before them the waters to Beit Bora and to the Jordan. Then all of the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together and took the waters, the river, to Beit Bora and to the Jordan. And they took two princes of the Midian, Oreb and Zeb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock. Oreb and Zeb they slew at the winepress in the winepress of Zeb, and pursued Midian and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of the Jordan. That concludes chapter 7. Sorry, I was looking at chapter 8. That concludes chapter 7. On to chapter 8. Gideon placates Ephraim. And the men of Ephraim said to him, Why have you done to us like this? See, that's not how we talk, is it? And this is why I get tongue-tied when I'm trying to read some of this. That you did not call us when you went to fight with Midian, and they contended sharply with him. And he said to them, What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has delivered you into the hands of the princes, delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. I was even struggling reading my own this morning. Then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that. 300, faint yet pursuing. And Gideon came to the Jordan. He and the 300 men who were with him crossed, faint yet pursuing. And he said to the men of Succoth, Now give, please, loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian. And the princes of Succoth said, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we would give bread to your army? And Gideon said, Therefore, when the Lord has delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I shall tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and the briars. And he went up from there to Penuel and spoke in like manner to them. And the men of Penuel answered them as the men of Succoth had answered them. And he spoke also to the men of Penuel, saying, When I come again in peace, I shall break down this tower. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor, and their armies with them about 15,000 men, and all that were left in the armies of the children of the east, for 120,000 men that drew the sword and fell. And Gideon went up by the way of those who lived in tents on the east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and struck the army, for the army was confident that it was safe. And when Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued after them and took the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and terrified the whole army. And Gideon the son of Joash returned from battle from before the sun was up, and caught a young man of the men of Succoth, and inquired of him. And he described to him the princes of Succoth and its elders 77 men. And he came to the men of Succoth and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom you insulted me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand? that we should give you bread to your men who are weary. And he took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and he punished the men of Succoth with them. And he beat down the tower of Penuel and slew the men of the city. Then he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, what manner of men were they whom you slew at Tabor? And they answered, like you are, so were they. Each one resembled the children of a king. And he said, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not slay you. And he said to Jether, his firstborn, get up, slay them. But the youth did not draw the sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a youth. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, get up and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon got up and slew Zebah and Zalmunna, and took away the ornaments that were in their camels' necks. The Lord will rule. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, you rule over us, both you and your sons, and your son's son also, for you have delivered us from the hand of Midian. And Gideon said to them, I shall not rule over you, neither will my son rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. And Gideon said to them, I would desire a request from you, that you would give me the earnings of each man's spoil. For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, we will willingly give them. And they spread a garment, and each man put in it the earrings of his spoil. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold. Okay, so that's like 42.5 pounds of gold. Imagine what we could do with that today. Besides crescents and pendants and purple garments that were on the kings of Midian, and besides the chains that were around their camels' necks. And Gideon made an ephod from it and put it in his city in Ephraim. And all Israel went there astray after it, which thing became a snare to Gideon and to his household. Thus Midian was subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads, and the country was quiet 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal the son of Joash went and lived in his own house. And Gideon had begotten 70 sons. It's a lot of kids. And remember, they had multiple wives and concubines. For he had many wives, there it is, and he and his concubine in Shechem also bore him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. And Gideon the son of Joash died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father in Ephraim in the Abiezrites of the Abiezrites. After Gideon anarchy. And it was as soon as Gideon was dead that the children of Israel turned again and went astray after Balaam, and made Baal Berith their god. And the children of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of their enemies on every side. Neither did they show loving kindness to the house of Jerubbaal Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had shown to Israel. And that concludes chapter 8. So, time and time again, the Israelites forget what God has done. And then they return to worshiping false gods over and over and over again. And we're susceptible to the same thing. We're very susceptible to the same thing. So it's probably a good idea, and I need to do this myself. It's probably a good idea when Jesus does something outstanding, like it cannot be denied. The power of him cannot be denied because there's what happened, what came to pass, what blessing, what you prayed for came to pass, whatever it is. He spoke to you, you didn't listen, he spoke to you again, and something happened, and you did what he said, and it was undeniable, completely undeniable that he did this. I suggest you write it down. I need to do the same. So let me just share a little story and then I will get off of here. And I'm not going to share all the details of it, but I was in a recovery group. Um, I I was in that recovery group about a year and a half before God relocated me here to Lubbock. I had never heard of Lubbock. I saw a guy there I really liked. I didn't want to date. So I was just like, Lord, I'm just going to appreciate him from across the room. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to be near him. I don't want to do anything with him because I'm going to end up dating him. I'm going to end up sinning again and I'm going to end up hurt again. And I just don't want that. So I would watch him. He was a really good musician and he was a really good looking guy. If you know who Bill Engvall is in his younger days, this guy looked a lot like him. A lot like him. And it wasn't him, but I think Bill Engvall was actually a little bit shorter than him. But there were some, you know, clear differences. Anyhow, this guy was tall. And I would just watch him for a few minutes, you know, from across the room. I appreciated his music and all of that, but I never talked to him. Then one day, we would start out in the recovery group, we would start out in a large group where everybody was congregated together, worshiping, praising. Sometimes we would have a lesson, sometimes we would have a testimony. They tended to alter it back and forth every other week. So, I mean, I only saw this guy like once a week. And then one day, he's standing up against the wall. You've seen those cowboy silhouettes where the shoulders are kind of rounded down, the head is kind of dropped. He's wearing a cowboy hat, got cowboy boots, and he's got one foot propped on a wall or a tree or propped on something, and the other foot still standing on the floor. That's what this guy looked like that day. And I had heard probably 3 times, go talk to him. And I didn't realize it was God talking to me at the time because I didn't understand how God talked to us. I knew there was multiple different ways, but like I still wasn't as aware. Anyhow, so I'm sitting in a chair. There's a row of chairs between me and him in a brief walking space. And he's standing there. He's got his arms folded across his chest. And he's just, I mean, he was like 6'2", 6'4", somewhere around there. And he was almost my height. And I'm like 5'4". Anyhow, that's how slumped over he was. And I knew he was hurting because God had given me compassion and empathy for other people who were hurting. No matter how much I was hurting for them also. And growing up, and as I became an adult, I would go and I would sit with them and talk to them. Sorry. I think it's the chlorine tablets that's in my swamp cooler. Anyhow, I would go and talk to them and just let them vent to me, you know. It would get me out of my own head and my own victimized body, you know. Now I'm a victor. I'm not only a victor, I am an overcomer. Anyhow, so he's standing there, and I heard, go talk to him. And I was like, no, 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 no. I am not going to talk to him. If I go talk to him, we will end up dating. I will end up hurt. I'm not doing this. And I had heard it again. So, like I said, I heard it like 2 or 3 times. Well, there was a row of chair in front of me. I was sitting in the second row, like the second seat, and there was a few rows of chairs behind me. And there was like we were done. We were taking like a 5-10 minute quote unquote coffee break. People were chatting. There was a group of people way over in one corner of the room, another group way over in another corner, you know, opposite. And all of a sudden, I feel this whoosh on the back of the chair that I'm sitting in, and I'm standing up. And I'm like, who hit my chair that hard to make me stand up? And so I'm looking all around the room. There was no one. I mean, I'm talking matter of seconds. I was looking. I don't even think it was 3 seconds. I was looking. There was no one around me. There was him still in front of me. Like I said, there was that one group way off to the right side in a corner chatting, way behind me off to the left side in the corner chatting. There was no one. And when I stopped looking around, the next thing I know, I'm standing directly in front of this guy. Directly in front of this guy. And I still didn't understand the chair, but then all of a sudden my mouth opens and I say, and it's not even me. I figured all this out later. Hindsight's 2020. I say, I'm not going to pretend that I know what you're going through because I don't know what you're going through, but you're going to be okay. And the next thing I know, like I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't remember anything. All I remember is the very next second, it seemed like these, I was surrounded, I was being held, and I realized he was the one hugging me. And I was like, oh crap. Oh crap. Anyhow, so, um, yeah, I went on to my small group, and every week thereafter, we had these little little chats here and there. Um, Over a few short weeks, we ended up going out to dinner together, and the next thing I know, we're dating. And I'm saying all of that because God needed me to talk to him. God wanted me to talk to him. Not because he was feeling bad, but God knows how compassionate and empathetic I am. God wanted to use him to move me to Lubbock. And that's exactly what happened. And it wasn't until, I don't know, it was quite some time later, looking back. I have never forgotten that chair. I have never forgotten that movement. God was using him to move me to Lubbock. We dated for almost right about 3 months. And he brought me here to Lubbock twice before I moved here. Um, he was very demonized, but I didn't know that. I just knew he kept hurting me over and over and over again. He never laid a hand on me, but he kept hurting me over and over and over again. One minute he'd be really sweet, and the next thing I turn around and he's being horrible to me, gaslighting, and it was a lot of emotional and verbal abuse. Like, he didn't say bad things per se, but let's just say I think he thought he was being funny. I don't know. I think it was demons, actually. It's the unclean spirits in him. Um, I would say something because I forgot, or ask questions because I forgot, or whatever. And one time he made a comment of, "You're not supposed to drive the Q-tip into your ear that far." And then he would smile about it. And the smile was not a real smile. I knew his real smile. That was not his real smile. And it was hurtful. It was very hurtful. Anyhow, 2 weeks before I moved here, he broke up with me. Um, he he liked to go to these little musical festival practicing type things where you just kind of hang out with people. And one time I had just moved here. Actually, I wouldn't even officially moved here. I was camping out in my Sequoia in the Walmart parking lot for about a week and a half before I got a paycheck from the district and was able to get into an apartment. So I was living in my Sequoia when I was here, was going home and packing. Well, that weekend, that first weekend, after the first week of work, that first weekend, I drove back, which was like about a 7 hour drive. I got home like 11, 12 at night. I was exhausted because I had got up early that morning to go to work and be at work all day, and then ran home. Well, didn't have to run home because everything was in my vehicle. Drove home 7 hours, and the next morning he wanted to go to one of the gatherings, and I was like, okay, and I was not feeling very well. Anyhow, and I was feeling more and more beat down because we had been together long enough. I had seen what was going on, but I didn't understand what was going on. I just knew I was getting hurt over and over and over. And so we went, and it was about 2.5 hours away from my house. And I would go for walks and things like that. I tried to take a nap in his car because I knew I was not feeling well. I just felt completely drained. Little did I know I was actually coming down sick. And um, I had gone to him after my walk. I walked around the square. After walking around the square, I went in and got the keys from him and was in his car for hours. And I'm talking hours. He never once checked on me. He lied to me later and told me he went looking for me. It was literally one small town square. All you had to do was walk to one side, look, walk to the other side, and look. That, I mean, like, you could see everything. So I knew he was lying. Anyhow, so I could hear the town locking up because they shut down exactly at like 9 or 10 o'clock. I think it was 10 o'clock. And so I was like, okay, I could hear all the vehicles leaving. And I was like, okay, he's going to come to the car soon. No, that's not what happened. Him and another guy went to the gazebo in the middle of the square and continued to play and talk and do whatever. And I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't sleep. I was getting worse. I was feeling sick to my stomach. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle. Whole kit and caboodle. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I had a temper tantrum in his car. I'm surprised I didn't break a window or damage the interior of his car because I think at that time, as hard as I was hitting things, I'm a female. I can't hit hard. As hard as I was hitting things, some kind of damage should have been broke. and I was screaming out to the Lord at the same time. And then after I had stopped, I cried a bit, took his keys, got out of the car, walked as coolly and as calmly and as peacefully as I could walk across the courtyard, laid the keys on the railing of the gazebo, looked up at him, and said, "I'm going home." And I turned around and I started walking. If I died on the way, it would be better than staying there. And I was telling the Lord, I said, I don't know how I'm going to get home. It's a 2.5 hour drive. I do not know how I'm going to get home. And this was on a Saturday, so it was Saturday night. Anyhow, he finally got in the car and caught up with me, and I heard him call me, but I was not interested in what he had to say. So I just pretended like I didn't hear him. I kept walking. He caught up with me about a quarter of a mile down the road, got in the car. He chewed me out, spit me out, basically cussed me out, chewed me up one side, down the other, spit me out, put me back in his mouth, and chewed me up again. And we got a little more, around about halfway, I guess, back home. And I just knew something was going to come out of my body. I just didn't know what end it was going to come out. I did not know. And I said, I mean, like I had said nothing the whole ride. I had tried to tell him when he first got in the car and started that I'm sick. I do not feel good. And he wouldn't listen. He didn't care. He told me that I had created a scene. I didn't create a scene. A person walking in peace and grace and quietness cannot create a scene. I had already created my scene in his car and he missed it. Anyhow, so I get into this grocery store. I don't even remember what grocery store it was. I get into this grocery store. I'm asking people to direct me to the bathroom because something's coming out and it ain't going to be good. And so I get into the bathroom. I do what I have to do. I come back out and I'm looking for like the soda bottles because I felt like I really needed ginger ale at the time. And so I went hunting. I found the ginger ale. By the time I found the ginger ale and went to check out, he came in. He goes, "Why'd you take so long?" I said, "I told you, I'm sick. My stomach is upset. My stomach is hurting. I'm buying the ginger ale. I will be at the car." And that's all I said. And so I get in the car and he continues. He continues. And maybe about a half hour to an hour before we arrived at my house, somehow I knew he was breaking up with me. I just knew. And we get to my house, park the car, and I open the door, and he drives off. And I knew. I went to bed, I took some medicine, I went to bed. I got up the next morning, and I called him, and at first he wouldn't answer the phone. He finally answered the phone, and I told him, I said, "I'm sorry about how last night went down, but I am sick. I am very sick." And he's like, "I don't care. We're done." And I'm like, that's not fair to me, you know? Anyhow, so he broke up with me 2 weeks before I moved. He was also jealous that I had got on the ball and got my job, got a job interview, got the job, and was already making plans towards moving because there was extreme peace over moving. Anyhow, so yeah, that's what happened, and that was why I didn't want to date him. But God had other plans. So God will use people who are ungodly. He will use them. Okay, I'm gonna get off of here. I love y'all. I call you the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, and highly blessed and highly favored of the Lord.